was 19th century. Well, but before that time there were other buildings. So it was during ages, everything was reconstructed, changed, a lot of changes to the buildings. But those Germans, in old times, in medieval times, Germans ruled this area. They were Catholic, and they were allowed to be elected to the city. Germans and Polish people, but Germans, they dominated. But it was 15th century like that. First Germans arrived to our city in 13th century, but they were farmers, and they lived outside the walls of the city in that direction, because they had farms over there to desert, and he lived in a cave there till his death when he was old, and he was considered so very clever. So people, they specially traveled to desert, to that cave, and they consulted him about his, about their life and so on. And he was considered to be saved later, after his death.
People got respect mostly after their death, huh? Oh yeah.
They have discovered those frescoes, 18th century. They are original. So people long ago, they decorated their houses in such a way. Well, it was like that. But long ago, of course, the whole house belonged to one family. Yes. And here they left this untouched, especially for people to see what building materials they used long ago. We think, this is theory. I told you about those walls which surrounded the city. When they ruined those walls, they used stone for rebuilding those houses which were inside. And probably, I'm not sure, this stone was taken from those walls. Because here we can see, it is block, a piece of it. It's stone, but here we can see bricks. Of course, bricks were not taken from that wall, but it looks like that, probably. We can say 1847 that door was made, so there were a lot of reconstruction. But here we can see also a very tasty place, handmade chocolate. This is one, I will give you for your... That yellow building over there, you can see it is not so attractive, but it's very, very important for Galician people. So we started that from the date, the 13th century. The city was founded in that period of time till 1340. It was under the protection of Kiev Knights. That's Orthodox and Slavonic and so on, those Kiev state. But Polish captured this area, but since that time, between Poland, Hungary, Lithuania and Kiev. And a little bit another period of time. So they were, Turkish army were attacking from this, from this part of the city. There was a small monastery they captured. They put the guns on the roofs of the houses, and they began to bombard the city. Some of the cannons penetrated through this Catholic church, but they didn't kill anybody. And people said that they were under the protection of the God, and that is why we have some cannons on the walls. and there is in Latin it is written there Turkish canals. But they were trying to, but they wanted to penetrate into the city, so they started their tunnels, and they put powder into those tunnels.
Yeah.
But some of the barrels were on the ground, over that tunnel, and there was. And here we can see old Armenian language. It is not more in usage. They don't speak or write like this because this is 16th century. So this is, but we have that. And again, that sandstone, you can see it's 1571. This tower was built in that period.
This is in original condition, right? This is the one. This is the one built on the same, right?
Yeah, this is original. Here, a former residence here, we can see it there. But, government doesn't pay enough attention to the reconstruction of the buildings. That is why mostly it's like that. Our local government have a certain amount of money for spending to renew houses. So they chose the oldest one building. They give money to this building, they reconstruct it, and then they are short of money. So they can't continue, because, next building to restore life. So those doctors, they didn't provide operations during nighttime. But when they saw such a bright light, they said, let's invent some illumination so we could provide operations during nighttime. They started experiments. So initially they started with explosions. There were some explosions, but later Yazaki went to Vienna. Other countries, they bought that pattern, and there were a huge number of modifications of that original kerosene lamp. Later I will show you how it looked like.
What
Not
it means?
like this.
What it means?
That is Ignacio Lucasek. The two guys, they invented such a kerosene lamp. But this is a restaurant. That is why it's for tourists. You know. So, but they are the historical persons.
In the same place?
Yeah, this is for making photo maps. They use the word v, Ukraina, v, not Ukraina, v.
Ukraine.
V, it means in. Krai, it means area, territory, country. So it means in the country, in an area. So living in a certain area.
A certain area. Ukraine means living in a certain area.
Certain area in Ukraine. But this is Ukraina. The word V, they changed it into U. It's okay because historically U it means the same, in. Well, and it became Ukraine instead of Ukraine.
Ukraine.
And that is but this is games of Slavonic languages, you know.
Yeah.
They are the same base they have, except Russians, by the way. Russians, they can't understand Slavonic languages. We can understand, for instance, Polish, Belarusian, Horvatia, for instance, Croats. But except Russians, because Russians, they are not Slavonic. They are Finnish Hungarian tribes which started speaking that old Bulgarian and Macedonian language in Cyrillic. It was written. It was like that. I can explain, but why they are so. So this is the initial. Later, Halych Volyn. It's only our territory, but Kiev was included. Lviv was the capital at that period of time. can see. And that is our, and Kievenites, he had sons and a lot of territories. It was like that on that old man. It was huge, like this. So he gave land to rule for all his sons, except some of them. They didn't have land to rule. So they moved to the east, closer to Moscow direction, to this one. And they discovered there a lot of tribes of Finnish tribes. They spoke different Finnish dialects there. Those knights, they were Christian. They Christianized Finnish tribes here around Moscow, for instance, and they on the basis of old religious books. But those books were used only in churches. That was not a speakable language which communicated Slavonic people between themselves. So it's like Latin, let's say. So it was old Bulgarian church language and Macedonian dialect. I mean Macedonian, former Yugoslavia. And those Finnish tribes, they started speaking that unification of that old religious Bulgarian dialect. And later, the first word Russia, we can hear when? In 18th century, Peter the Great. That was, before that time, this area was called as Moscovia, because of Moscow, Moscovia, not Russia. But later, Peter the Great, they needed to have a good history for their Moscow, because they have problems with the surrounding countries. And they wanted to be the ruler of that area as the Rome in old times. They called themselves later the Third Rome. We are the Third Rome. And we are newcomers from after the Byzantium and the Rome. So they took that politics from old times. All those tsars, Bolsheviks and Putin, they continue the same idea which was invented before them in all those times. They began their politics. And at the same time, a drugstore or pharmacy. You may buy, that's it. This is the first kerosene lamp. It looked like that. But later, all those lamps are modifications of that lamp. So here we can see the original kerosene lamp. So long ago they used even they used kerosene here, but later it was rebuilt. They used electricity now, but long ago the name of this lamp is Spider. It's because it's like that. Yeah. Again, here, that is the main avenue that Polt very well. So imagine there are no people. The settlement of people on the banks of River Poltva was since the prehistorical times. The excavation proved that. But in 1240s, Daniil Romanovich Halitsky, a symbolic knight, Kiev knight, he had built a fortress. Over there is a TV station. There is a hill, a big one. We call it today a high castle. He had built a fortress for wooden to defend this area from Mongol Tatars. He had very huge problems with them. Sometimes when they come to the city, they order to ruin all the Muslims. They escaped from Russian army, and it was closed. The museum was here, but during the Ukrainian period of time, it was given back to people. Today, this is Greek Catholic Church, and that is why we have the Pope, and that is the actual head of the church, Sviatoslav Shevchuk, but he is in Kiev. The main church of Greek Catholic religion is in Kiev today. Oh, and this is Baroque style. We can say all those figures, they have different clothes. You can see that. All in all, there are 18 sculptures. Those are Dominicans, which got the status of saints in the Christian religion. There were 18 of them. So we have those 18 those saints. He printed two very famous books all around the world, ABC and Apostle. They are very, very valuable from the artistic point of view. And collectioners, people who collect such things, they cost very, very big sum of money, those books. And they are very, very few, some of them. For instance, Apostles, about eight books all around the world. ABC, about 750 all around the world. In Europe, in the library, the scientific library, they had such a book, and we also had some water. Water between two walls. It was like a channel, but British people, they call it moat. It's a special fortification, like this. So, it's Bastia. The distance is approximately 20 meters here. We can see. Why? Because they use those bows. And if enemy capture this wall, they could shoot this distance. I don't mean those British longbows, because they covered a long distance, but those the usual bows. So it was like that. And this is a complex of Orthodox church here, but the same is in a lot of people. It is very small. And this tower, church, and there is a chapel of three saints, which is inside this yard over there. But there is a lot of people, but nothing very weapons over there. But downstairs, this is a restaurant. This is very popular. Ribs. It's called Under the Arsenal, and they use wood for making ribs. So very special way. That is why it's very popular. So a lot of people are standing there in line. So next, we continue with Jewish. So Jewish people, they moved to the German with cars, but also for tourists. And it is approximately 24 minutes past 9 here. There is a small parachute. Then a dragon spits fire till the ground, like that. Here. Train is moving to and fro, and tourists are gathering here for procession and so on. And so every evening you can come here and see that show. Von Zacher Basel, his real name, he was born in this city, and he lived here till he was 12. Then his parents moved to Austria, to Vienna. And when he became adult, he began to write novels. He became a writer. And in 1870, he wrote a very scandalous novel at that period of time. It was called Venus in Fur. And there were some special depictions in that novel. And what is the name of the novel? Venus.